My name is John Kane. I attended Cambridge Central School from the third grade until completing high school and graduating in 1978. I was active, well liked by my fellow students and faculty, and I genuinely enjoyed my years in this school and as a part of this community. I come here today again to be active, but not necessarily well liked. I am here to ask the superintendent and board to take action to remove the school's race-based nickname and mascot. I am Native, Mohawk, or Gunjagahaga to be more accurate. For several of my years at Cambridge Central School, my family was one of only two families in the district that were Native. The boys from the other family were some of my closest friends growing up, and ultimately would become family when I married their cousin. My wife is actually related to these guys. Those boys are Onondaga. They moved away before high school, coming back years later, but leaving me and my siblings as the only Native students in the school, calling themselves the Indians. Now, to be clear, I was never bullied, abused, or traumatized in any real way by having my culture and ancestry mocked by the school using a Native reference or image for their mascot. Sure, I was called Chief, Wapu, or even Pocahontas on occasion, but it was all in good fun. But none of my personal feelings and experiences from Cambridge are the reason I am asking for the name change. The bottom line is that schools, colleges, and even pro sports teams using a race-based name or image for their name or brand, it's wrong. Native people are the most marginalized people in the United States, yet they are almost singularly used and mocked for the amusement and entertainment of others through these mascots and logos. Schools are supposed to be institutions of learning, and that responsibility requires truth, honesty, and accuracy. Schools are also supposed to be safe spaces, free from racial profiling, stereotyping, and free from promoting discrimination, and free from mocking anyone's culture or heritage. Throughout the region, state, country, and even the world, the trend is clear. While over 2,000 schools in the U.S. still use Native mascots and images for their amusement, that number is dropping all the time. Even the Washington NFL team, whose owner vowed never to change that name, dropped the racial slur this year. We live in charged times. There's an awakening across the U.S. over systemic racism that has actually sped up the rate that schools are dropping Native mascots. And not just names like Redskins, Savages, Red Raiders, and Squaws. Those aren't the only ones being dropped. Arrows, Tomahawks, Warriors, Braves, and Indians are being retired also. And why? No, it's not because of political correctness run amok. No, it's not about being snowflakes or oversensitive or flaming liberals. The problem is that schools are promoting false stereotypes and narratives about a specific group of people. And that is a disservice to the Native people as well as to everyone who experiences this practice. I have heard people claim that mascots honor Native people. They don't. I've heard that removing these mascots is erasure. It isn't. In fact, it is the names, mascots, and stereotypes used that are the erasure. The famed American author of The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, L. Frank Baum, advocated the extermination of all Native people. To explain his views on the subject, he said, "Why not annihilation? Their glory has fled, their spirit is broken, their manhood effaced. Better that they die than live the miserable wretches that they are. History would forget these later despicable beings and speak in later ages of the glory of these grand kings of the forest and plain that Cooper loved to heroism." This sentiment lies at the foundation of the use of Native mascots. Baum said, eliminate us, exterminate us, and then let the likes of James Fenimore Cooper and others reinvent us as heroes, grand kings of the forest and plain. Bury who you really perceive us to be, ignore our present, dismiss our future, but recreate the past and claim it for yourselves. Are Native people who really your grand kings of the forest, your noble savages, your brave warriors? No, of course not. Thomas Jefferson called us merciless Indian savages in the U.S. Declaration of Independence. You massacred our people, buried us in mass graves, ripped our children away to kill the Indian, save the man Indian boarding schools. This is not mascot material, so you erased it. You created something more to your liking. And while Native kids were beaten, tortured, and even killed in those government-funded and church-run boarding schools for speaking their language and desperately clinging to some semblance of their culture, white kids could smear their mom's makeup on their face for war paint and play Indian right alongside their parents at high school football games. Mascots are in no way representations of real Native people. They are made up images, names, and mockeries of who we are or were. These are attempts to erase us. They dehumanize us even as they cast us as relics of the past. Why would non-native schools or people involved with them use a people that their founding fathers and historical figures committed such atrocities against? Why would they use them for mascots? It's because the truth is erased and how we were really viewed and treated is ignored. Revisionist history reinvents a more satisfying narrative, a romantic image, and that becomes what you aspire to be with your mascots and nicknames. You are the Indians, not me. You honor yourselves with these images, not me. If you truly respected Native people, you would teach the truth. You would stop mocking our past, ignoring our present, and dismissing our future. You would stop promoting an identity you created, and allow us the dignity to define ourselves. Oh, and one more obvious problem is that we are not Indians. That too is a mistake, and all part of the Columbus myth, another false narrative schools have been invested in for far too long. This issue has been studied. The psychological damage is well documented. This practice violates the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, the New York State Dignity for All Students Act. And the sad part is Cambridge is better than this. It's past time for this change. There's no shame in righting a wrong. But clinging to it and fighting the change to the bitter end can only bring harm to the school and the community's reputation. Some schools have spent millions fending off lawsuits, fines, and challenges. Most don't. But even those that do all change the name eventually. For you, the question is, do you change it now and stand on the right side of history and this issue? Or do you dig in for a longer fight that will ultimately cast this community in a bad light? Change the name. Thank you.